All right, we're on slide 117, so we're getting close to the end of the content portion of the course. And we're going to look at two stages combined together because they complement each other, marketing and sales. So we're on slide 117, and we're going to break down marketing, first of all, into two components. There is the content marketing, and then there's the traditional marketing. Content marketing is the art of communicating with your client without selling, okay? So the idea is you're not saying buy, buy, buy. You're saying here's the benefits, here's how we work, here's how you can access us without the hard sell. Instead of pitching products and services, you are providing the customer information that will allow him to make an informed choice. And then there's the traditional marketing. It involves the five P's of marketing: person, place, product, pricing, and promotion. And when you build your marketing plan into the body of your business plan, you have to cover those five. Going back to traditional marketing, content marketing, it starts with your elevator pitch, okay? And it works its way through your website and your social media platforms. And this can include blog posts, email campaigns, testimonials from customers, promotional material, videos, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And there's probably some others out there that I don't know because I'm not social media savvy as much as the younger generation is. But this is the content marketing. This is what your business looks like. So when the customer looks at it, he says, okay, here's what they do, here's the benefits they offer, and then it leads you to how they actually make their purchasing choice. Traditional marketing is quite often being overlooked in this digital age because everything is online and everything is better, and so we think anyway, and so it's ignored, but it shouldn't be because it still plays a huge part in the marketing of products out in the real world. And one of the ways is networking. And I'm going to, in a video called Miscellany, I'm going to give you some pointers on how best to do your marketing. Although I think in other courses you have an opportunity to learn those skills as well. So I'll give you one example of networking and how well it worked. I had a student who went through the international business international business program. When we had a more complete program, he wanted to get international business, but by the time he was finished the program, he was poor. Okay, he had educational debts and very little in his bank account. So he came into my office and he brought a coffee and a donut, which was my standard fee for giving advice to students. That's a joke, by the way. Anyway, he gave me a coffee and he gave me a donut. He says, okay, Peter, I want to get into international business, but I have no money. I have debts. What can I do? So he could not establish a business selling and buying products and things like that. So I said, Vince, be an agent. And he said, what? I said, be an agent. And he said, I don't understand. I said, well, okay, what you do is you say, hi, I'm an international business agent. You meet with people, you network, and you hand out your card. And then there'll be somebody that needs a service or a product provided and doesn't have the basis or the educational experience or whatever to do it. And so they will hire you. And so that's what he did. For the cost of a donut and a coffee to me and the price of business cards, he began going to various meetings, Board of Trade and trade conventions, and handing them out. Well, there was a woman in the interior of BC who makes... back up. There was a woman in the interior of BC who was a nurse, and she worked with Alzheimer's patients. And I tell this anecdote in my business law class too, because it's very important to the whole concept of agency. And she when she worked with Alzheimer's patients, she noticed that they, when they were having an episode, looked a lot like a baby. Okay, so when you have an Alzheimer's episode, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you are, and you don't know why you are. Sort of like a baby, in a baby carriage. They don't know who they are, they don't know where they are, and they don't know why they are. What happens when the baby starts crying? They hand them a stuffy, and the baby goes, "Ugh," and stops crying. And so this nurse realized that the most dangerous part of Alzheimer's was not that over a lot of years it was going to kill you, but it would quite often trigger a heart attack, because suddenly you go, and you don't know where you are, and you don't know why you are, and you don't know who you are, and your stress shoots through the roof, and it causes a heart attack. So she began making these dolls, stuffies, and handing them to Alzheimer's patients when they were having an episode, and they would calm right down. Okay, and people around the province heard about that, and so doctors and nurses and care home workers were calling her and saying, "Can we get some of your dolls?" I'm pretty much sure that almost any doll would work, but this comes back to something we're going to talk about at the end of this chapter, and that's being the firstest, or the firstest, with the mostest. It's I say firstest because it's the phrase was first used by a U.S. Cavalryman in the Confederate Army, and so he talked with a Southern accent. However, so anyway, she realized she had a market opportunity. And then she investigated making the dolls in BC and found that the labor costs were too high. So she knew she had to make them in the Far East. And she was a little upset when she found out that the Far East was actually to the west. Okay, and by that I'm being facetious. What I mean is she didn't know how to go about doing that. She met Vince at at one of these marketing events, and had his business card, and called him and wanted him to go to Hong Kong and find her a manufacturer for the dolls. And so Vince came back into my office and he says, "Here's another coffee and here's another donut. Okay, now I'm an agent. How do I do this?" And I said, "Oh, it's really easy, Vince." I said, "You are being paid by your client, commissions and costs, right? So she gives you some money, and you go and you get on a plane and you fly to Hong Kong. You get off the plane in Hong Kong, you walk out the door and you ask the taxi driver to take you to the Canadian consulate. A taxi driver will speak English. You get in the car, you go to the Canadian consulate, you walk in, you say, "I want to speak to a trade officer." They take you to a trade officer and you say, "I'd like names of a couple of manufacturers that can make these dolls." So they will recommend reputable manufacturers. So Vince went out to a couple of the places, decided on which one, signed a contract in his client's name, and bingo, the woman now has somebody in Hong Kong making her dolls. Now that's networking, okay? And you can get involved at Capilano University in networking right away, in anticipation of graduating and having business contacts, okay? And the best one, it relates to marketing, is the BC American Marketing Association. And if you have some questions about some aspect of your business plan that relates to marketing, my recommendation would be to find out people in that club and see if you can get some assistance, okay? They're called mentors. Okay, so that's networking. You network at events and you let them know about your product. You're not saying, "Hey, buy it, hey, buy it." You're saying, "Hey, this is what our market's like." Exhibiting it at trade shows. My client up north would travel to the United States to a couple of fishing and hunting trade shows. Then he would go to Europe, and he would go to some shows over there, particularly in Germany, but also in Switzerland. And he would pay for the cost of a booth, which is not insignificant, and then he would be there to tell everybody about his facilities and the services that he offers, not necessarily with the expectation of signing them up right there, but making sure that they had the information so that they could contact him later. Then there's face-to-face meetings. This could be in an elevator, doing your elevator pitch, or it could be when you actually make an appointment to see someone. And then also there's the cold calls where you just walk in and you say, hi, can I speak to somebody? I want to talk about them. And then there's news releases. News releases, if you make an announcement about your product, and sometimes you send it to the newspapers, particularly the local newspapers, they will find times when they have lots of space. And so what they do is they pull out one of these news releases, they put it in, and you basically get a free advertisement. And then, of course, there's also advertising both online and through the usual media, newspapers, magazines, TV, and radio. Very expensive, okay? So if in your business plan you say, well, we're going to spend $10,000 and we're going to have some TV advertisements, I'm going to say, not in this universe you're not, because it's very expensive to actually do a TV commercial. Construction going on across the street, so I'm just going to close the window. There we go. Okay. There are, however, some creative things you can do in the way of TV and radio advertising, which is generally more expensive than others. And I am just going to go back to a screen. It is screen 85, and it talks about the various forms of business organizations, sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporations. Then at the bottom, there's these things called societies and nonprofits, and I talked about those too a little bit, but I don't think I did cooperatives nearly enough. And here's a perfect example. One of my clients got a Sylvan Learning franchise. Okay, the franchisor is in Baltimore, and Sylvan is huge all across the United States and Canada, and he got one of the franchise. Now, it was an area franchise. Okay, so there are location franchises, area franchises, and then one where you are actually a sub-franchisor. Well, that's in, I think it's stage 11, which we will probably not get to this summer, so this is about all you're going to get. Anyway, he got an area franchise, which means an area of Vancouver he could open up as many Sylvan Learning Centers as he wanted. And then somebody else would have an area like Richmond, and somebody would have Burnaby, and somebody would have North Van, West Van. Those are area franchises. Unlike some like McDonald's, which is generally, there can be area franchises, but usually it's one franchise in one location. Okay, so it's a location franchise. Anyway, he has this franchise, and he's operated for years, and they did well. And then more and more of these learning centers began to open up. Copycatting, it's called, and we'll get into that a little later on in this chapter again. And so Baltimore came up with this really clever idea, and they imposed on all their centers in the United States and Canada that they had to do so much TV advertising. Well, in Baltimore, in New York, in Los Angeles, these centers are big enough that they could afford to do this. Or at least if they couldn't, they must have done something else as well. But for the smaller operators in Vancouver, for example, my client, even though he had at one point 4 centers, could not afford to do a TV ad. I mean, you might be able to make an advertisement for $10,000, but you had to put it on the air 17 times a day in order to actually adequately cover the market, okay? And he couldn't do it, and he was going to be in default of his franchise agreement. So, again, it's sort of like how to be innovative and entrepreneurial inside your business. Okay, so he's not an entrepreneur. He's a small business person because he got a franchise. Anyway, he what he did was he got all the area franchises in the Lower Mainland together and said, Baltimore doesn't care if we do one TV for all of us, commercial for all of us, or we each have our own TV commercials. Because the idea is I'm not supposed to have a commercial that's actually competing against you just because you're in Richmond. So they said, let's get together and let's pool money and run these TV ads. And they all said, sure. And so my client called me up and he said, how do we do this? And I said, well, you're not going to form another business. Okay, you're not selling anything. You're not selling a service. You're not selling a product that people are paying you for. You're just pooling the money in order to cover a cost of these TV commercials. So I said, what you do is you form a cooperative, which is a separate legal entity, and it has, instead of shareholders, unless they've changed it and modernized it, they have members. Okay, and these members elect a board of directors, and then the board of directors actually elect an officer and a secretary, just like a corporation. And it is a separate legal entity, so if it makes a mistake and it gets sued, there's the corporate veil of protection, just like with a corporation. And the idea is not to make a profit. Okay, it's like a non-profit organization, except a non-profit organization is involved in something like Children's Hospital or Board of Trade or Chambers of Commerce, organizations like that have a philanthropic goal to them. A cooperative is not philanthropic. Okay, a cooperative is business people getting together to have better buying power or better marketing. And so anyway, I formed a cooperative, and they all paid money into it, and that cooperative made the TV commercials and ran the commercials for all the centers. Very, very innovative, okay, and entrepreneurial, which proves that even inside an existing organization, you can be entrepreneurial. Okay, now getting back to my marketing slide. Let's see, where are we? Here we go. Great. One more up. Two up. You have these, this advertising. Okay. TV advertising. They advertise in newspapers and magazines and things like that. Now, exhibiting and trade shows. There's something about that, but I think what I'm going to do, if I didn't mention it at the beginning of this slide or this video, is I'm going to have what I call my miscellany video, because there are certain things in certain areas that I would like to say that I didn't think about doing in the video, and I may forget to do them in the Zoom session, and they're really important. So the idea I had, we'll deal with that later. Okay, so that's the traditional marketing. Now, in Drucker's book, there's a couple of entrepreneurial marketing strategies, which I've already touched on, and I want to mention them right now. And the first one is the thustus with the mostus, and again, that is not a spelling mistake. It comes from a mispronunciation of a word by the Confederate general in the Civil War. And his idea was that he would take as many men as he can and he would attack first, and he had great success. So the idea is that if you have an idea and a product or a service, you get into the market as quickly as you can and with as much strength as you can, so that you can grab the lion's share of the market, which makes it difficult for imitators and competitors to come into the market. All right, it's Starbucks strategy. Their strategy is a Starbucks coffee shop on every corner. Now that's totally impossible and impractical, okay? But it's the philosophy behind it. If they have all these stores, it's going to make it difficult for Second Cup and all these others to come into the market. There is competition, and and the competitors, which are basically copycatting, do well because the market is so huge. Starbucks can't cover it all. Anyway, their idea is to do that. And when they got into China, initially they said they were going to open up 100 stores a year for 100 years or something like that because the market was so huge. Anyway, so the first is with the mostest, and on screen 121, I've got a picture of a car with a Band-Aid on there, and this is to give you another example, but of a smaller nature, and that is I had a client who came out with this gimmick gag idea before anyone else. All right, and he came into our office and he said, "Here's what I've got," and the Band-Aid is really big. And it's one of them said "ouch," and the other said "fender bender," and one said "kiss me better," and and he said he wanted to sell them as a gag, but he could make a substantial amount of money. So he came in and he said, "I want to protect my idea." Well, let's run down the list. Trademark. He was going to call it Band-Aids, which was a takeoff of Band-Aids, and you think, confusingly similar. Obviously not, because Band-Aids by Johnson & Johnson is a Band-Aid, which you put over a cut on your hand or on your foot or something like that. And this obviously was a gag gift, and it was serving a completely different market. Okay, so you can have what looks like a confusingly similar trademark as long as you're in a different product or service category, because then the consumers cannot be confused. So he had the name, and we said, okay, we can trademark that. And then he said, okay, and then there's the design, the drawing or the shape of it and everything. And we said, okay, we can get copyright on that. Because you can get copyright on, an artistic or ornamental work. And we can get an industrial design on the Band-Aid because there's a shape which is pleasing or judged solely by the eye. But the only real protection that was going to stop copycatters from coming into the marketplace was a patent. And he said, great, get me a patent. And we said, well, we can't. Let's go through the list. Ingenious, utility, novelty. It's a sticky thing that goes over something that's hurt, and so it was unlikely that they were going to get a patent on it. But Lance Turlock said, "I'm going to." He was the patent attorney in our office. "I'm going to file a patent so that you have patent pending. And then we will prosecute it to the best we can, and we'll drag it out." Remember I talked about dragging it out? Okay, so you're not going to get your patent. You're not going to be protected for 20 years. But if we drag out the patent for 3 years, and then they say, okay, it's denied, it's unlikely that the competitors will see that immediately. So you'll have 3 years when they won't copy you, and maybe a fourth depending on how fast they get into the market once they know you don't have a patent. And so we got all this intellectual property protection on it, and he said, great, so what I have to do now is be the firstest with the mostest, the firstest with the mostest, and get into the market and capture the market share. Unfortunately, they had zero money to do that, okay? And while they were able to make their product in substantial amounts, they found it really difficult because where do you sell it? Well, that was before the dollar stores, but you still have to pay what they call, you still have to buy shelf space. Okay, we had another indirect client in our firm, and so we got them in touch with each other, and that was 7-Eleven. And we said what he would like to do is he would like to put these on sale in your store. And they said, sure, they would be responsible for keeping stock up and everything like that. But you had to sell or buy shelf space. I thought, what? And they said, we have so many people with so many products that want to be on the shelf in our store because we have so many stores that you have to pay us to get your product on the shelf. And it was going to be $60,000 a year. Wow. I can't remember. I can't remember if that was per store. No, I think it was $60,000 for the stores in Canada. And then there was going to be another huge amount of money for if you wanted to get them in the stores in the United States. And our client did not have the money. And so they did the best they can by making some and selling some and getting them in some stores and not in other stores. And after the term of the 3-year period, it was such a neat novelty gift that there's novelty companies out there that'll just step in and they'll copy what you've got and put it out there. Smaller in size, less expensive, different design, different name. And that's exactly what happened, okay? And so they were unable to be the firstest with the mostest in the marketplace, and so along came the copycatters. Okay, so the copycatters are the next screen. Hitting them where they ain't is another Drucker term, and this is what they call creative imitation. Where somebody else already has a product or a service, but they're not serving a market. It may be a market that they're ignoring. It may be a market that they're not, able at this point to move into, or it may be that they just haven't figured out that that's a real market for it. And so the entrepreneurial copycat comes in, and it isn't creative that they copy, but it's creative that they serve the uncovered market, okay? And so you're hitting them where they ain't. And anyway, this what the textbook calls it is copycatting. They don't refer to Drucker or anything like that, and hitting them where they ain't, or first with the mostest really haven't caught on as standard terms in the industry. They say they call them something else. So it's called copycatting. A success can come from doing the same thing someone else did, but doing it better. Okay, and 2 examples of that is Henry Ford. Henry Ford did not invent the motor vehicle. He just looked at the motor vehicles that were there, and he said, I can use mass assembly on assembly lines, and I can make them less expensively than them, and I can sell them to people. Okay. Until then, it was if you owned a motor car, you were incredibly wealthy. Okay. It's sort of like when the Teslas came out. Okay, they were very expensive. And if you were really well-to-do, you could afford to buy one. Okay, and then eventually they've got the cost down, and people can start to afford them. Another example is Steve Jobs, who did not invent the touch-tone or touch-screen phones. Okay, he just took an existing idea and made it better with the iPhone. Okay, and so now people are trying to copycat them all the time. All right, so that is the marketing aspect. Now the sales part is, we're on slide 123, and what you have to do in order to have effective selling is to make sure your brand and visual identity are professional looking. And not only professional looking, but protected as best you can with intellectual property. You always have to, you have to have a good website, and you have to update it, change it periodically. Not so that you lose your branding, but, for example, Capilano University will have different pictures on their screen, and the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, for example, has a website where upcoming events flash on the screen, and interesting astronomical events taking place in the sky flash on the screen, and also NASA pictures of Mars flash on the screen and things like that. So that when you come into the website, it's different every time, and it's fresh every time. And yet, the key with a website is being able to maneuver your way through it. Now, no offense to the university, but and they are getting better, but I find their website really hard to use. And the IT people have nothing to do but sit at computers. And so for them, that is fine, but they go to get to the same place. So 3 times instead of 2 or 1, and they don't see any problem with that. And so consequently, there will be times when on our eLearn site, we had a system where you could access your class list, and with one click, you could get your total class list, and you could send out a mass email to them. And they've changed it. And so I went in this year and I went, there's the class list. I want to send them off my syllabus and my something else. I can't remember what else I sent out. Grading profile, I think. And I went in and I went, okay, copy. And it sent me to Google email. And I don't have a Google email account. And why should I have an account? It should be the university. And so I went to the IT people, and they said, oh, no, what you have to do is you have to go into this screen, and then click on there and go to this screen, and then on the right-hand side there's something else, and you just click there and you get it. Like, that's so easy. And I said to them, it was so easy before. Why did you change it? And the answer was, it made more sense to us. And so my point here is set up your website, figure out how they maneuver through to find your products or your programs or information or contacts, and then get somebody who is not a computer nerd to try to maneuver through it. It is just so irritating when you go on the web. They say, "Oh, go on the website and click on this, and then you're okay." And you go on the website and there's no this, and you struggle and you struggle and you struggle, and then you call them back and they go, "Well, this is called that," and you go back to the website. Oh yeah, there it is, that. But for them, this and that is the same thing. But when you're not in the know, they are two completely different things. I hope I'm making sense. But some websites, you go on and you just go, like, I can't do that. You go into, for example, we're having the Development Bank of Canada come in, and I went on their site and I wanted a guest speaker. Oh, I maneuvered and clicked and went into contacts and everything. Finally, I got a contact. And I emailed him and he said, "Oh, I'm not the right person. I'll get someone else to be in touch with you." And finally, I got an email back from their head office saying, yes, we do those sorts of guest lecturing, but we're not the person that sets it up. It's the person in BC. And so they gave me that person's contact information, and I contacted her, and she was very helpful. And she said, "But it's not me." And, you sort of go after a while, my goodness, if there was a competitor, I would go to them, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that your website is not only visually good and it has your branding and visual identity there, but that it can be maneuvered through very quickly. Okay. I'll give you one other example of something that you should do, and that is if you want people to be able to contact you by telephone, you'd better have a good answering service unless you have 30 people answering the phones. How many of you, and of course I can't see your hands, have gone onto a website where someone will be with you shortly. The wait is estimated at 45 minutes. Please stay on the line. Your call is really important to us. If the call was really important to them, it would not take 45 minutes to get an answer. And then if it's something like a charge card, up comes an automated answer. You have reached bank card. Please enter the first 8 digits of your bank card so that we can immediately identify you and provide you better service. Okay? 45 minutes later, somebody comes on the line. Hi, give me the first 8 numbers of your business card so that I can assist you. And you go, didn't I already do that? Well, yes, but that was, in the call system. Now I have to verify who you are. So I go, okay. Okay, and what's your name, and what's your birth date, what's your blood type, what color are your eyes, and when was the last time you walked your dog? And you're going, and you do all that. And it just drives you crazy. So if you have a phone answering machine because you're out doing business and you're the only person, and they phone in, make sure that it's streamlined and it works. Okay, I really like my doctor. She is the weirdest doctor in the whole world. I mean, you would not believe how weird she is. But I like her because when I was younger, and I'm still doing some sports. I do running and skiing and things like that. So I may have some sports-related injuries. And what I like about her is she can diagnose the problem immediately, and almost always she's correct. And so anyway, I use her even though she's weird. Okay, one of the things I don't like about it is she is so abrasive that she quite often loses her receptionist, and so you have to phone in and leave messages. Pardon me. And you phone in and she goes, "Hi, this is Dr. So-and-so's office. If you are phoning about your prescription renewal, you will have to make an appointment and come into the office. If you are phoning about an appointment, then please give me your name and telephone number and I will call you back. If you are phoning about the results of your test, you have to make an appointment and come in and see me. And if you are experiencing pain or something and this is an emergency, please call 911. Now, I phone up my doctor. And I go through the whole list and I get to the end and she says, call 911. Wouldn't you think that was the first thing? Hi, if this is an emergency, I'm not in right now, please call 911. If this is not an emergency, and so she hasn't listened to herself. So make sure that when you set up these systems, that you have somebody else besides you test them. Okay, you know what's coming, you know what to expect, you know what you intended, so you won't notice these errors. But somebody who has to use it will find out about them extremely quickly. Okay, when you're in the sales business, you want to dress professionally. This does not necessarily mean a suit and tie or a dress suit all the time. It relates to the event itself. So I run my international trade law class as a business, and we have a directors meeting. Now, the company is actually an extreme sport company. So when we have meetings and when we do things, as part of the running of the business, I will be in a gull shirt with the logo of the business on the front. But if I'm going to have a directors meeting, and there's a presumption that there may be some inside directors, which means employees, and some outside directors, some advisors from the business community, I want to go in there in a gull shirt. No, I don't think so. I think it would be appropriate to go in slacks, shirt, tie, or slacks and a blouse, and look more professional. When I'm making a presentation, or when students make a presentation for me, I expect them to look business professional. Okay, I remember years ago, I had a fellow who came in a t-shirt, and I almost failed him like that. And I had a young lady who was very attractive, who came in with a blouse and a bare midriff to give a business presentation. Now, that's totally inappropriate in the circumstances. I mean, on a date, yes, it would be, lovely, but in a presentation, it wasn't. And she argued with me on the basis that that was a very expensive blouse, and it was her best blouse. Okay. The young man in the t-shirt argued that he did not have a sports coat. All right. So you're going in for a bank loan. Well, I can't wear a sports coat because I don't have one. Go to a thrift shop. You may have to go 5 days a week for 2 weeks in order to have something come in that's your size, but you can buy something that's decent, and no smoke and mirrors is going to make make your instructor or professor think that in the real world he would dress in a suit, but he doesn't have to. For me, it just doesn't work. Dress professionally. Leave a brochure or some contact information with the person. Always carry business cards, because somebody may not need your goods or services immediately, but I tell you, they're not going to search for you unless you're the only person that they in the whole world that they want to deal with. If they can't say, okay, where's my contact information, then you've lost sale. And after most of these events, send a thank you note. Or, for example, if you go out networking, and with the BCMA, for example, and you may meet some people in the marketplace, and you exchange cards, is one of the things you should do for sure. Then, once you've done that, surreptitiously mark down on the back of their card something about them. I remember one time I met someone at the BCMA event, and we talked for a few minutes, and we both had sailboats. And so we talked about that for a while, and then we, wanted to make other contacts, so we politely said, see you later. And I sent this person not a thank you note, because there was nothing to thank him for, but I sent a note saying it was pleasant meeting you, and and I hope you have some good sailing weather, something like that. And got a call from them, and they said, I'd like to find out more about the legal clearance work that your law firm does. Okay, so sending a personal thank you note is quite important. Now, just yesterday, I sat for 4 hours through job interviews. Some law instructors are looking to do some teaching at our university, and they're both very good candidates. One was stellar in comparison to the other. But I'm waiting now to see if either of them send a thank you note. Okay, and now it was a committee, and they might send it to the chair of the committee, but they also had the names of all the people sitting on the committee, and I noticed that one of the people said, hello, my name's so-and-so, and I'm here and I'm applying for the job. And I said, I'm Peter Holt, I'm one of the instructors here. And he just went like this, yes, okay, that's nice. nice to meet you, and I am, so and so, and okay. And he was writing them down, and I thought, okay, that's good because he'll remember when I come on the screen and I say, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a question. And he said, sure, Mr. Holden, go ahead. Well, right away you think, oh, very professional, right? But I'm also waiting to see if they actually send a thank you note, because that's going to make an impression on me. Okay, so you have to think ahead and do those sorts of things. Now, the sales process is you want to generate leads. So you can work with consultants who offer services that complement yours. So in other words, if I'm a lawyer and I do legal work for some people, I may work with some accountants because they do accounting work and we complement each other. Okay. Offer rewards and referral rewards for current customers. This works. I remember I have two daughters, and they are both wonderful children. Somehow we did a really good job, and we're still trying to figure out what we did right. But anyway, we opened up bank accounts for them, and there was one, I can't remember, I think it was either Tangerine or what's the other one? I can't remember. Anyway, every once in a while during the year, they, on their birthdays, they get a McDonald's card for $5. Okay, and it says, "Thank you for your service. Here's a small token of our appreciation. Please enjoy a coffee on us." That is really effective, all right? Or, we notice in your file that it's your birthday, all, best wishes, and here's a $5 Tim Hortons card. And so those little rewards to current customers work. And then the other one that really works is you open up an account with some organizations, and they say, if you send us the names of 3 other people who open up accounts with us, we'll send you or we'll deposit $500 into your bank account. I'm looking around for people. I mean, $500, right? So you can do those kinds of referrals and rewards sometimes, and they work really well. You can do other things too, like on your website, you can, in order to get contact information, because you don't know necessarily who comes onto your website, you can say, we'll send you additional information about our products and services and the delivery of them in the future. If you're interested, if you are, then give us your email and we will automatically enter you into a contest promotion for blah. Okay, and so you can generate leads that way. Writing in for established publications is a very, very effective way. So I belonged to the Rotary Club when I was out in Surrey. I started my law practice out there working for a lawyer that did real estate law. It was during not a depression but a recession, and jobs were scarce. So that was my first law job, and I went to the work in his office. And then I joined another firm that was substantially larger, and I began doing more and more corporate commercial work. Well, I joined the Rotary Club, and I was sitting with the office manager, okay, because it's a non-profit organization that we talked about, and they had an office, and the person that was in the office put out a newsletter once a month. And we were sitting at the table, and she said, "Oh, Peter, you're a lawyer. Do you think there are any interesting legal topics that our members, should really know about?" And I was sitting there thinking, about 20 or 30 that I can think of offhand. And I said, "Oh yeah, there are some things of a general nature that may be really helpful." And she said, "Well, would you be interested in writing a column for our newsletter?" Yes, fantastic. Okay, get your name out there in front of all those potential clients. I began teaching at Capilano University when it was still Capilano College because I really wanted to teach that course. Okay, but it was also really good because I was teaching former business people, and it's amazing how many times over the years the students would graduate and I would wind up having them as clients. And it worked the other way too. As a matter of fact, I remember I had one student in my class. I'll call him Dave, and I was talking about process serving. When you sue someone, you have to do process serving. He came up after the class, and he gave me his business card, and he said, "I have a business, and I am a process server, and if you ever need my services, please give me a call." And I had to serve a document a short while later, and so I got him to do it, and he did an excellent job for me. And so he became my process server. And eventually, I also did legal work for him. Okay, he wanted to buy some property with his sister. We did that. He wanted to establish his estate in order, so I did a will for him and a power of attorney and things like that. So that's what you do. Participating in user forums. I've already talked about the American Marketing Association BC chapter, and I've also talked about the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. They have a club. I belong to that, and I don't think I got any legal clients from them because I think I was 2011. No, I was still a practicing lawyer, but fairly inactive in the club initially. But I got some business ideas because of my association with them. And then very, very curiously, I was watching my daughter, one of my two daughters, gave me a birthday present, which was a subscription to Sky News magazine. In there, an organization called the Northeastern, I can't even remember what it means, the Northeastern Astronomy Festival, I think. And what it was is a festival where people that sell astronomy equipment, people that sell electronic equipment, people that sell anything related to those topics could. It was like a trade show, but they'd have this, and they call it a festival, and they couldn't have the festival live this year because of COVID, and so I saw in the magazine that there was a free attendance to this online show. And I thought, okay, well, what the heck? So I went online, and they had some really interesting guest speakers. They had Charlie Duke, which was one of the astronauts that landed on the moon, and they had Stafford, who was a Gemini pilot, astronaut rather, and they talked about, for an hour about what they did. And then in between one guest speaker and the other, advertisements come on. And I realize that these can be very effective because I was attending virtually. And so I had these advertisements going on very quietly in the background, and I'm working on some material for this course, as a matter of fact. And all of a sudden they started talking about an eyepiece and how to really use it to make sure that you get a crisp image of whatever you're looking at through your telescope. And I looked at them and I thought, okay, I bought one of those. And I wasn't terribly enamored with it. I mean, it was okay, but it was supposed to be so much better than my others, and it wasn't. And so I watched it, and he explained what you do. And I went, wow, okay. And so, who cares? Well, these are very expensive, and they have 3mm eyepieces, 6mm, 12mm, 25mm, 35mm, and a 2x Barlow. 6 eyepieces that I want. Okay, so if you participate in these forums, not just as a viewer, but as a customer, it can be very effective advertising. Two reasons. Number one is it's user friendly, and I've got nothing else to do but watch that. And number two, you're getting the exact market you want. You're getting the exact customer you want. And so it turned out to be excellent. Now they would have a number of commercials, and there was some where you could buy an astronomy hut, like an observatory, so that you could put your scope in, and it would, and I'm going, I don't need that. But when it got to some of the things that I do need, like eyepieces, it turned out to be very, very effective. So they're reaching the market they want. All right. So the sales process continuing, cold calling. This is one of the hardest things to do in the whole world, cold call. When I was with the Development Bank of Canada, I had to do cold calls. We were brand new in Surrey. Nobody knew about us. Our office was in a brand new building out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so it wasn't like, oh, hey, look, there's an office. No, you'd have to drive to our office intentionally. Terrible location back then. Now it's built up so that there's businesses all around it, right? But back then it was out in the middle of nowhere. And so the idea was, how do we get known? Well, they advertise, sure, but not terribly effective. And so we were literally required, when we don't have office work to do, to actually go out and go to businesses and just stop in and see who they are. I think I could do it now a lot better than I could back then. Back then I was almost embarrassed to walk into somebody's shop and ask them if they might need my services. I don't know why, but I just didn't have a sales bent, okay? Now remember that branding is not, and then networking. We've already talked about networking, but it's part of the sales process, and it's probably one of the most effective because you can actually generate leads without doing the high pressure sales thing, okay? Branding, it's not just your logo, it's the whole, it's how your business is portrayed to the world, okay? It cannot just be through a logo, because unless the logo tells them what it is. I mean, you look at the symbol of Nike. If Nike didn't have millions and millions of dollars to do marketing, you would have no idea what that symbol meant. But now you do, okay? And Starbucks, well, it's a fantastic symbol, but it says Starbucks coffee. So right away you know it has something to do with a cup of coffee. So you do the branding because what you want to do is have everything in your pamphlets, on your website, on your business cards, on your advertising, which portrays your business. Ask for the sale. Years ago, there was we were going to be buying something like a photocopier, or maybe it was overhead projectors for the classrooms or something. These people were coming into the School of Business, and they were making presentations, and we listened to 4 people in a day. They made their presentations, and 3 of the 4 gave you the attitude like, here we are, and if you come to deal with us, we'll think about whether we'll deal with you or not. And I sort of thought, wrong attitude. And the 4th person said, here's what we can do for you. Here's why we're better than the others. I want your business. And at the end I said, that's the guy I would go with. The guy who really wants your business rather than the guy who thinks he's doing you a favor by doing business with you. And then the last thing on the screen is your call is really important to us. Prove it. Okay. And the banks are so big that when you call the head office at the bank, it's 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and then you get on and, oh, no, I'm sorry, this is the wrong department, but I'll transfer you to the person who can take care of you. Click, and there you are in the queue again. So those are the elements of marketing and sales that you should be considering to build up your marketing and sales plan for your business plans. And you've got to, zero in on the 5 P's of marketing. If any of you have had marketing, you realize how important that is. And anyway, that's enough for now. What I have decided to do, and I'm just going to mention here, is have a miscellany video, which you should make sure that you see before the exam, because these will be some things that I'm going to probably have on the exam, because I think they're so important, and I'm not sure that I covered them enough. Okay. All right. There are stages 10 and 11, buying a business or franchising. And what I'm going to do in that miscellaneous video is cover a couple of aspects of those that I think are really important and everybody should know. And then the only reason that you should probably read those chapters is because, number one, you're going to be exposed to a lot of information which is really important to business people out there. At some point, you're going to either buy a business, but just about everyone who is successful, it gets to a point where they have to sell it. Okay, and number two, there are lots of pitfalls in franchising that you should know about. So if you are looking at doing a business plan for the course that is buying a business, read that chapter. If you're looking at a business plan to buy a franchise, then you read that chapter. Otherwise, you can read them, but you will not be tested on them. And so about 90% of you are thinking, phew, then I'm not going to bother reading it. That's up to you. Okay, I cannot force you to learn. Okay, but I can make the information available to you. In the summer term, there is no final exam. Ergo, with the exception of my miscellany chapter, this material will not be testable. All right, but it will help you in your business career. It will help you with your business plan if those aspects fit into it. And you're here to learn, so read the chapters. I will not be doing videos on them. So that ends all the videos from the textbook. The other aspect of the course is, of course, the elevator pitch, and I am going to post an elevator pitch, which no, sorry, I think I'm going to have a Zoom on the elevator pitch, but I'm going to post some material to e-learn about that. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you very much.